My 7-year-old daughter saw the 52-person family tree my parents proudly hung in their hallway. Everyone was on it, except me and her. "There wasn't enough space," my parents said. I didn't shout. I did this. Everyone in the room fell dead silent. If you've never tried hosting Christmas in a house where you're technically part of the family, but also somehow the live-in maid, let me tell you, it's a very specific flavor of hell. By noon, I'd already washed 3 rounds of dishes, reheated appetizers twice, and rescued 2 burning trays of potatoes from the oven, while my mom, who allegedly couldn't use her arm, directed me from the dining room like a general at war. My 7-year-old daughter, Ellie, flitted around me in her little red dress, trying to help until my mother snapped, "Sweetie, go play! Tara can handle this." Tara can handle this. Tara always handles this. I kept my smile tight and polite, the same way I always did. Dry humor is a survival skill in this house. If you can't laugh at your own emotional destruction, what can you laugh at? Everyone was buzzing about the big surprise my parents planned to reveal before dinner, the giant family tree mural they'd hired an artist to paint in the hallway, 52 names, 52 portraits, months of planning, weeks of bragging. I hadn't seen it yet, not for lack of trying. Whenever I asked, they'd wave me off with, "You'll see it with everyone else. It's special." The mural stayed covered with a huge canvas sheet, like some sacred relic awaiting its grand unveiling. I should have listened to the uneasy feeling crawling at the back of my mind. But it was Christmas, and Ellie was excited, and I wanted, just once, to believe we were included in something. Dinner prep hit its peak meltdown phase around 4 o'clock. Aunts and cousins piled in, shedding coats, greeting one another with the kind of affection you see in commercials. My parents glowed with pride, welcoming everyone into the hallway like royalty hosting a ball. Then, finally, the moment came. "Everyone gather around!" my father called out, puffed up like a parade balloon. People shuffled closer, wine glasses in hand, cheeks rosy. Ellie squeezed my hand, eyes wide. My parents grabbed the corners of the canvas cover and with dramatic flair pulled it down. The crowd gasped, applauded. Someone actually said, "Oh, wow, this is beautiful." I barely glanced at it. I was holding a platter of rolls and trying not to fling it across the room. When you're the designated servant of Christmas, appreciation isn't part of the job description. As the guests swarmed the mural like moths to flame, I slipped back to the kitchen to fix the gravy Mom said was too thin, which, ironically, is also what she used to say about my personality. I didn't see Ellie wander off. It was 20 minutes later, when everyone was seated, when wine was flowing, when my dad toasted to family unity, that Ellie returned. Her tiny hand tugged at my arm. "Mom?" I knelt beside her. "What's wrong, baby?" Her eyes were shiny. Not crying, but close. "I can't find me." "Find you?" I echoed. She nodded, swallowing hard. "On the tree. I looked really hard. Can you help me?" Something in me went cold. I stood up, ignoring my mother's hissed, "Tara, sit! We're making a toast!" "No, not tonight." Ellie led me to the mural. We stood in front of it together, the hallway suddenly feeling impossibly long and too bright. It was elaborate. Branches curling in gold, little portraits painted in soft watercolor tones, names in careful script underneath. I scanned it, expecting to find us tucked somewhere out of the way I found. My sister Heather, her husband Blake, their daughter Kira. 5 cousins, 3 second cousins, the cousin who never calls the cousin's wife the cousin's wife's mother. Okay. I found the neighbor from 2 houses down the au pair who lived with us for 1 year a decade ago, my mother's best friend, even a distant great-aunt I swear hasn't been conscious since 2003, but not me, not Ellie. I felt my chest tighten. Okay, don't panic. Look slower. We checked again. Every branch, every leaf, every swirl of painted gold. Nothing. Ellie's voice came out small. Maybe they spelled my name wrong? heart cracked a little. I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to invent an excuse that would soften the blow. But the truth sat there, staring back at me in 52 perfectly painted faces. We weren't forgotten. We were excluded. On purpose. I marched straight to my parents. Mom was laughing with a guest, holding her wine glass high, the picture of holiday joy. "Mom," I said quietly, "Ellie and I aren't on the mural." She blinked at me, her face barely shifting. "Oh, well, there wasn't enough space. There are 52 people on it. Yes, and it couldn't fit everyone," she said dismissively. "You included the au pair. Well, she was special to us. You included neighbors. Close friends count as family. And Ellie doesn't?" Mom's expression tightened. "Tara, you're making a scene. It's a simple decoration." I stared at her. A simple decoration. My daughter's name erased. My existence erased, and it wasn't even worthy of guilt. Just annoyance. Behind me, Ellie stood very still. That decided it. I leaned down to her. "Sweetheart, go upstairs. Pack your backpack." She nodded once, silently, and hurried up the stairs. I didn't bother explaining to anyone else. Not my parents, not the guests, not the people who stared at me like I'd broken the Christmas spell. I went upstairs, grabbed my own bag, shoved in what mattered, and walked back down with Ellie's hand in mine. Conversation stopped. Forks froze midair, eyes widened. Someone whispered, "Are they leaving?" Yes, we were. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't owe them a performance. We stepped out into the crisp night air. Ellie shivered, gripping her bag. I unlocked the car, loaded our things, and got into the driver's seat. Ellie buckled her seatbelt slowly. "Mom, where are we going?" I started the engine. My hands were steady for the first time in years. "Somewhere better," I said. "We're starting over." She nodded, trusting me completely. As the house grew smaller in the rearview mirror, I felt something lift. Something heavy. Something old. Whatever came next. They had no idea, and neither did I. But I knew one thing. We weren't coming back. I didn't sleep that first night in the hotel. Ellie did, curled up under the stiff white duvet like she finally felt safe. But I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling something old and ugly claw its way up my spine, because leaving wasn't just about the mural. It was about everything that came before it. Everything that built the version of me my parents counted on. Everything that made them believe wiping me and my daughter off a 52-person family tree was acceptable. You don't cut someone out of your life suddenly. You do it slowly, layer by layer, year after year. And the truth? My parents had been cutting me out since the beginning. I was 2 years older than Heather, and apparently that made me the designated work mule of childhood. If there was a mess in the house, guess who cleaned it? If something broke, guess who fixed it? If Mom needed help sorting bills or packing holiday boxes or straightening up, guess who she called? Not the golden child. No, Heather's job was to exist. My job was to keep existence running smoothly. There's this one memory I can't shake. I was maybe 10. My parents decided they wanted the hallway repainted before a family gathering, and I spent a whole Saturday painting the bottom half of the wall. Primer, 2 coats of color, trim, everything Heather contributed by walking through once and saying, "Pretty." The next day, someone complimented the paint job. My mom smiled and said, "Isn't Heather talented?" I stood there holding the empty paint can like a confused extra in my own life. I told her, "I painted it." And my mother said, "Yes, but she helped pick the color." Dry humor is hereditary, I guess. I think that was the first time I laughed out of disbelief. It didn't change when we got older. Teenage Heather was always busy. Busy with a club, busy with a project, busy with Blake even when he was just the boy she giggled about, busy being the person my parents wanted her to be. If I asked for help? "Oh, Tara, you're so good at these things," Mom would say. "You don't mind doing it, right?" Right. Because why would I ever have homework, or deadlines, or a life? And then adulthood hit, but instead of equality, the dynamic calcified. I became a single mom. Heather got married, had Kira, started posting photos of her color-coordinated life on Instagram, and my parents ate it up. Every school project Kira did, genius. Every minor achievement Heather made, groundbreaking. Every accomplishment I had, accidents, apparently. "You got promoted? Oh, that's nice. You manage everything on your own? Impressive. Considering." That considering did have a tone. Then 2 years ago, everything snapped into place like a trap. Mom broke her arm. Suddenly, the house was in chaos. Dad couldn't cook a frozen pizza without burning the box, and apparently picking up a sponge would have made his ancestors ashamed. So there was a family discussion. Who would move in temporarily to help? Shockingly, Heather was too busy. Kira had ballet. Blake had long work hours. Heather had a big presentation coming up. All very convincing, in a please don't look too closely at the lies sort of way. So guess who moved in? Me and Ellie. Or as my parents liked to call us, our big help. It was supposed to be temporary, just until Mom healed. Except Mom's arm healed. And then apparently healed wrong. And then was still sore. And then was not quite usable. And then was unsafe for housework. And then, miraculously, was perfectly fine whenever she went to Heather's house. Heather would brag, "Mom baked banana bread for us yesterday." Funny, she never baked while I was living there. Maybe her arm just didn't like me. At first I tried to rationalize it. She's older, she needs help. Dad can't manage things. Family supports each other, right? But after the 6th month of doing every meal, every grocery run, every load of laundry, every bill, every tax form, and every repair while also paying them rent, something started to crack. Not loudly, quietly, like a hairline fracture under pressure. "I don't understand," I told Mom once. "Why I'm paying rent when I'm doing all the cleaning and cooking." She waved her good arm and said, "Well, if you didn't live here, we could rent out the room to someone else." Right. Someone else who would presumably both pay rent and fix their entire lives. And still, I stayed. For Ellie, for stability, for the guilt that had been stitched into me since childhood. Until the mural. That stupid, expensive, elaborate, meticulously planned mural, 52 names. Neighbors, distant relatives, family friends, an au pair, a cousin's wife's mother, and not me, not Ellie, not even squeezed onto a tiny corner branch, like an afterthought. My parents didn't forget us. They erased us. And somehow, that freed me. I woke up in the hotel to the sound of Ellie shifting in the other bed, and for a moment I didn't remember where we were. Then it hit me. The mural. The dinner. The way everyone stared as we walked out. The way my mother didn't even bother calling after us. And instead of panic, what hit me first was adrenaline. This wasn't running away. This was breaking free. Ellie blinked awake, confused, hair sticking up everywhere. "Mom, where are we?" "In a hotel," I said. "Just for now." She looked scared for half a second, then scanned my face and found her anchor. "Are we going home?" "No," I said. "We're done with that." Her eyes widened. "For real?" "For real." There it was. The flicker. Relief. Maybe for the first time in her short life. I got up, grabbed my bag, pulled out my laptop, and set it on the desk like I was preparing for war, and in a way, I was. First target? The money they bled from me. I logged into my bank accounts, pulled up the rent transfer my parents insisted on, clicked cancel, and didn't even blink. Then the grocery transfers. Then the extra utilities contribution nonsense. Then the insurance line I had been paying for no reason other than, "You make more sense with paperwork, Tara." Click, click, click. Every cancellation felt like cutting another rope off my chest. Ellie climbed out of bed and patted over. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Freeing us." She watched the screen, fascinated. "Can I help?" "You know what? Yes. Press that button." She pressed confirm cancellation, and I swear that girl has never looked prouder. Then came the vacation. I pulled up a cabin rental website, something Ellie and I used to scroll through together, dreaming. "Pick one," I told her. Her whole face lit up like a sunrise. "Really?" "Really," I said. "We're not spending our money on people who erased us." She pointed to a tiny lakeside cabin with a deck and a fireplace. She'd asked about it months ago, and I'd said no because we can't afford it. Now I booked it without hesitation. "Mom," she whispered, "didn't you say we didn't have money?" "We didn't," I said. "But now we stopped paying for people who didn't treat us like family. That changes things." Her smile cracked something open inside me, something tight and old and angry. This was worth everything. My phone buzzed. Then again. Then again. I put it face up so Ellie could see. "Where are you?" "Come home, now." "Your mother is in pain." "Do you realize what you've done? The kitchen is a disaster. Who's supposed to clean it? People are asking where you are. Get back here." Ellie frowned. "They're being rude." "That's one word for it." I typed one message. "We're not on your family tree. Handle your own family." Then I put my phone on silent and tossed it onto the bed. No more explanations. Around noon, Ellie and I spread apartment listings across the bed. Photos, prices, maps. She took it very seriously, which was adorable considering her main filtering criteria seemed to be, do I like the window? We found one with a bay window and a tree outside. Ellie pressed her palm to the photo like she was already imagining herself there. "Can we live here?" she asked. "We can try," I said. It felt possible. For the first time in years, everything felt possible. And then the tone of my parents' messages flipped. The last one came in like a punch. "If you don't answer, we're filing a missing person report." I snorted. "Of course they are." Ellie looked up. "What does that mean?" "It means your grandparents are panicking because they don't know how to cook breakfast." She giggled, which I appreciated. A few hours later, "We filed it. The police are looking for you." I set the phone down slowly. There it was. The escalation. The moment the game changed. They weren't scared. They weren't worried. They weren't trying to check if we were safe. They were trying to pull the leash. Too bad the collar was already off. The knock came just after 8. 3 sharp taps. Ellie froze. I put my hand on her back and whispered, "It's okay." I opened the door. 2 officers stood there, calm, polite, professional. "Ma'am," one said, "your parents filed a missing person report for you and your daughter." I nodded. "Of course they did." He blinked, surprised at my lack of surprise. "We explained to them this doesn't meet the criteria," he said. "But because a child is involved, we do need to make sure you're safe." "Come in," I said, stepping aside. Ellie waved at them from the bed, clutching her blanket. "You both left voluntarily?" "Yes." "No one threatened you?" "No." "And you're safe?" "Yes." The officers exchanged a look, relieved. "All right, then we're done here. Sorry to bother you." "Not your fault," I said. They left quietly. When the door closed, the silence was different than the morning. It wasn't peaceful. It wasn't empty. It was charged. Ellie crawled into my lap, sleepy and warm. "Are we okay?" "We're perfect," I said. "They just don't like that we're gone." "Are they mad at us?" "They're mad they lost control." She nodded and rested her head on my shoulder. And there it was. The truth I hadn't said out loud yet. Leaving wasn't the end of the fight. It was the beginning. 4 weeks later, the quiet in our new apartment felt almost suspicious, like life was holding its breath before something cracked. Peace wasn't something I trusted yet. Not after the way my parents operated. I blocked my parents. I blocked Heather. I blocked anyone who might be in their little circle of denial. But there were still some extended relatives who slipped through. Second cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. An aunt who once forgot my name. People who suddenly felt deeply invested in my moral decline. Why aren't you talking to your parents? This is a family matter, honey. Your mother is devastated. You need to stop being dramatic. I didn't explain a thing. It's private, I'd say. Between me and them. I'm focusing on my daughter. Translation: mind your own business. They didn't like that, so eventually they gave up. For a few days, life felt normal. Too normal. Cue shoe dropping. I was in the middle of drafting an email at work when my boss poked his head into my office with an expression normally reserved for fire alarms. "Tara," he said carefully, "there's someone asking to see you in the lobby." My stomach hit the floor. My first thought? Oh, hell. My second? It's them. They found me. My third. Ellie is safe at school. They can't get to her. I stood up, smoothed my shirt, and walked out like I wasn't dying inside. And there she was. Heather. She had never, not once in her entire life, shown up at my workplace. She looked completely out of place among the suits and glass walls, sweaty, disheveled, breathing like she'd sprinted from the parking lot. "Tara," she said, grabbing my arm, "you need to come home. Now." "Let go," I said quietly. "What are you doing here?" She didn't let go. "Mom and Dad." "Tara, they're a mess." "Oh, here we go." "They can't keep the house clean," she rattled off. "They're living on takeout. The utilities are behind. The paperwork. Tara, you have no idea. The paperwork. Dad can't figure anything out. Mom says her arm hurts too much. The fridge broke. The bills are piling up. So hire someone," I said. She blinked. "They don't have money." "They had money for a 52-person mural." "That's different." "Sure," I said. "Art is forever. Clean dishes are temporary." She pushed her hair back with a shaky hand. "You don't get it. I don't have time to deal with this. I have a job and a husband, and Kira's activities. I can't just drop everything." I stared at her. "Oh," I said. "So basically, you're too busy." "Yes," she said, relieved I finally understood. "And you think I'm not?" She froze. I watched the realization crawl across her face like a slow bug. Her face tightened. "This isn't fair, Tara. You can't just disappear and dump everything on me." "Oh?" I said. "So now it's your turn and suddenly it's not fair?" She looked away. "You're the one who had the time," she snapped. "You lived with them. You handled everything. That was your role." "My role," I repeated. "Assigned by who?" She didn't answer. I stepped closer. "Let me try your logic on you, Heather. You were the daughter they celebrated, the daughter they bragged about, the daughter who got every perk, and somehow I was still the one expected to do all the work. That's not—" "They cut me and Ellie off their family tree," I said. "You know what that means? It means we weren't family to them. So why exactly am I supposed to keep acting like their personal staff?" Her mouth opened, then shut. No words. "You visit them," I said. "You post photos with them. You're the one they claim. So why aren't you stepping up?" I don't have time," she whispered. "Neither did I said. "But I still did it for years. And they erased me anyway." Her eyes flashed with something. Shame, annoyance, maybe both. "This is unbelievable," she muttered. "You're just walking away?" "I already did." She stared at me like she was waiting for the old version of me to show up, the one who would rush in, apologize, fix everything she didn't find her. "I can't handle this," she said, voice trembling. "You were never supposed to," I replied. "That was always the problem." She swallowed hard. Then she turned and walked away, her heels clicking like tiny explosions of defeat down the hallway. That evening, I picked Ellie up from school, and for the first time all day, I took a full breath. We walked home together, bags bouncing, Ellie chatting about a penguin drawing she'd made in art class, and then I saw them, my parents, standing in front of my building like two ghosts who hadn't realized they were dead yet. Ellie stiffened. I put an arm around her. "Tara!" my mother cried, rushing forward. "How could you do this to us?" "Oh, for heaven's sake," my father muttered. "She's really going to make this difficult." Mom clasped her chest. "Do you want your daughter to abandon you one day, like you abandoned us, when we needed you the most?" "Right. The guilt parade." "You're teaching her terrible things," Dad added. "What kind of mother are you?" I stared at them, calm, cold. "You left us off the family tree," I said softly. "You told the whole world we didn't exist." Mom waved a hand. "Oh, stop it. It was symbolic. It was accurate," I said. "You treat Heather like a daughter. You treat me like a housekeeper you don't pay." Dad stepped forward. "You owe us money." "For what?" I asked. "Babysitting Ellie for a few hours when you begged me to let you? Or was it the rent I paid you while cooking every meal, cleaning every dish, managing your paperwork, and running your home?" They both faltered. "If anyone owes anyone money," I said, "it's you, to me." Mom's voice shrank. "Tara, we need you." "No," I said. "You need a maid." Silence fell so heavy it felt physical. My parents looked at me, then at Ellie, who was staring at them like she didn't recognize them anymore. "Please," Mom whispered. "You're our daughter." I shook my head. "You made that choice when you erased us." And just like that, their faces broke. Not in sadness, in shock, in disbelief that I wasn't folding back into their control. They turned and walked away. But the damage had already been done, just not the way they thought. Because for the first time, they couldn't manipulate me. For the first time, I was free. About a year later, I started hearing scraps of news about my parents from the few relatives I still tolerated. Apparently, after I left, they tried to keep things exactly the same, meaning they tried to replace me with a cleaner, a handyman, and some household helper they found online. It lasted 2 months. The bills lasted much longer. When the invoices piled up, they expected Heather to step in. She laughed. "Absolutely not." That was the beginning of their golden child illusion cracking. By spring, Mom's bad arm healed with miraculous speed. Convenient. Right around the time they realized no one else was going to sweep their floors, Dad even started cooking. And yes, the neighborhood still hasn't recovered from the shock. Eventually, the math caught up to them. No rent coming in from me, no free labor, expensive helpers, missed payments. They had to sell the house. They moved into a much smaller place across town, 2 bedrooms, thin walls, and neighbors close enough to hear their arguments. People started distancing themselves too. Once the mural story circulated, their social circle shrank fast. Nobody likes a family that erases family. Meanwhile, my life went in the opposite direction. Ellie and I thrived. My finances stabilized so quickly it was embarrassing how long I'd struggled. This spring, I put a down payment on a little house with a big window that Ellie immediately claimed for her art. Funny how life changes when you stop letting people drain you dry. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. I brought chrysanthemums for Mother's Day. My mom slammed the door in my face. There's no place for you here. 4 months later, I bought a house in the suburbs for about $1.2 million. At the housewarming, my relatives practically jumped me. What is this? Some kind of show? Why did you pretend you were broke all these years? My answer shut them up so fast, the whole room went quiet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Emily. I'm 32, and one phone call flipped my life upside down. It was from my aunt, Aunt Diane. We hadn't talked in a few months, even though we'd always been close. Sweetheart, she said, and I could hear the tension in her voice. I need to talk to you. Is everything okay? Last night I had a terrible dream about your parents. I know you haven't spoken in years, but maybe it's time to try again? They're still your family. Family. Sure. I sighed. Aunt Diane was the only relative I still kept in touch with. She knew the whole story. Why, 10 years ago, I cut off my parents, my brother, and my sister. Aunt Di, I really don't think that's a good idea. Just think about it, she begged. Mother's Day is coming up. Maybe that's the right moment? I had absolutely zero desire. But for her sake, I was at least willing to consider it. She'd always treated me like an actual person, not a walking wallet or a disappointment. If this would calm her down, why not think about it? To understand why this phone call was such a big deal, we have to go back 10 years. I was 22. I had just finished a state university in New York with a major in financial markets and investments. I'd gotten a junior analyst job at an asset management company that worked with clients trading on the New York Stock Exchange. I rented a tiny one-bedroom in Queens and was trying to build a career from scratch. Then my grandmother died, my dad's mother. She'd always treated me well, unlike the rest of them. When they read the will, it turned out she'd left her house with a yard to her 3 sons, my father Mark and his 2 brothers. They sold the property and split the money. But the interesting part was this. To each of her 5 grandkids, she left $50,000. My brother Jake, my sister Madison, me, and our cousins Logan and Hannah, each of us got $50,000. Everything was fair, equal, or so I thought. 3 days after the will was read, my mother called. "Emily, come over for dinner tonight," she said. "We're getting the whole family together." When I got to my parents' apartment in Jersey City, a typical beat-up high-rise 14th floor peeling paint in the hallway, Jake and Maddie were already sitting at the kitchen table with stone faces. I should have realized right then something was burning. "Sit down, Emily," my mom said, setting a mug of tea in front of me. "We need to talk about something important." "Okay." "Your sister is getting married in 4 months." "Wow. Congratulations, Maddie." She didn't even smile. "Thanks. But we have a problem," Mom went on. "Weddings are expensive." And there it was. "We think," she added, "that you should give your share of the inheritance to your sister for the wedding." I literally went speechless for a few seconds. "I'm sorry. What?" "Madison needs a beautiful wedding," Mom pushed on. "That $50,000 will cover the big things, venue, dress, photographer. But that money is mine. Grandma left it to me." "Don't be selfish," my dad cut in. "In this family, we help each other. Jake got his share, the cousins got theirs. So why am I the only one who has to hand mine over?" I asked. "Why not split the costs between all of us?" "Because Maddie needs it more," Mom snapped. "She's starting a family. You don't even have a boyfriend." I stood up from the table. "No, I'm not giving it up. It's my inheritance, and I'm going to invest it in my future." My sister's face went bright red. "You're unbelievable," she hissed. "If you don't give me the money, you're not invited to the wedding." "Great," I said. Don't try to blackmail me. That's when my dad exploded. Get out of my house, he yelled. Greedy little miser. I don't want to see your face here again. From this moment, you're not my daughter. I just stared at him. Sure, they'd always treated me worse than Jake and Maddie. But this was a new level. Are you serious? I asked quietly. Absolutely, Mom said, flat as concrete. Don't come back until you come to your senses. So I left. No hugs, no goodbye. Nothing. Just the kind of silence you get when someone decides you're worth less than a party. I was hurt, furious, but I wasn't going to cave. After that dinner, nobody called. Not once. For a while, I still tried. Sent birthday messages on WhatsApp to my parents, to Jake, to Madison. Nothing. No replies. Not even a lazy emoji. A few months of cold, deliberate silence later, I stopped trying. And in the meantime, I took that $50,000 and did something unforgivable in their eyes. I invested it. Part of it went into a promising medical tech startup. The rest I spread across bonds and stocks through a brokerage account, watching market reports while other people watched sitcoms. 5 years later, the startup was bought out by a strategic investor, and my share was worth around $700,000. I didn't quit my job. I stayed on as an analyst at the asset management company, but I built my own portfolio on the side. Another 5 years went by. My capital reached about $2.5 million. Brokerage accounts, bonds, foreign assets, stakes in promising projects. Everything worked together like a well-tuned machine. And through all those years, my family never found out about my success. They had completely erased me. They had no idea what I did or how I was doing. Which brings us back to Aunt Diane's call. Mother's Day was 2 weeks away, and I decided, why not at least try? Maybe 10 years is enough time for people to cool off. On Mother's Day, I went to see them. I bought a huge bouquet of chrysanthemums and white lilies at an expensive flower shop and drove out to Jersey City, to the same building where I'd grown up. Nothing had changed. Same peeling paint, same scribbled walls in the stairwell. I went up to the 14th floor and knocked. My mother opened the door. When she saw me, her face went through a whole slideshow of emotions. Surprise, confusion, and finally irritation. What are you doing here? Hi, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. I held out the bouquet. I just wanted to talk. Maybe try to fix things? She didn't take the flowers. Behind her, I could see my dad, Jake, and Madison with her husband. My sister had 2 little kids in her arms, kids I was seeing for the first time in my life. I tried to take a step forward. Can I come in? Mom immediately blocked the doorway. There's no place for you here. Got it? Leave. And she slammed the door right in my face. I stood there, like an idiot, holding this armful of flowers in a dirty hallway that smelled like dust and old cooking oil. After a minute, I forced myself to move. I went back down the same stairs I used to run up as a kid, dumped the bouquet in the first trash can outside, sat in my car and just breathed, very carefully, like anything more would break me in half. Happy Mother's Day. I didn't tell Aunt Diane right away. I knew she'd be more upset than I was. Instead, I threw myself back into work. My investments kept growing. The portfolio moved past $3 million. My salary at the firm went up again. Queens started to feel too tight. One evening, I came home, looked around my small 1-bedroom and thought, it's time to buy my own place. I called a realtor and laid out my wish list. A house in the suburbs, within an hour of New York City, minimum 3 bedrooms, a decent lot, and, non-negotiable, a pool. Over the next few weeks, we drove all over Westchester County, touring gated communities with security booths and manicured lawns. And then I saw it. A modern house in a gated, business-class subdivision about 40 minutes from Manhattan. Open-plan kitchen and living room with an island. Primary bedroom with a walk-in closet. 2 guest rooms. A 12,000-square-foot lot. Heated outdoor pool, and a built-in barbecue area. The price was $1.3 million. We negotiated down to 1.2, and I offered to pay in full through escrow, no mortgage. The seller agreed instantly. 3 weeks later, we closed at the title company. Just like that, I became the owner of my own house. Moving day was chaotic, but happy. For years, I'd been collecting furniture and decor, waiting for the right place. Designer armchairs, custom light fixtures, paintings by contemporary artists. Everything finally had a home. I called Aunt Diane to share the news. "Emily, I'm so happy for you," she said. "I'm so proud." "Thanks. I'm thinking about having a housewarming. Will you come see it?" "Of course. Can I tell the rest of the family? They'll want to see what you've accomplished." "Sure. Invite whoever you want. Just Aunt Di. No invite for my parents, Jake or Madison. I don't want them there." We set the housewarming for September, exactly 4 months after that delightful Mother's Day visit. I invited colleagues from the asset management firm, friends from my university days, and told Aunt Diane she could bring any relatives she thought were safe. The day of the party, the house filled up with people. It felt incredible to have my own space and share it with people who actually valued me. My cousins on my dad's side came too, the same ones who'd inherited Grandma's $50,000. Logan walked around with his jaw practically on the floor. This place is insane," he said. "I had no idea. I thought you were kind of scraping by or something." "Thanks," I smiled. "I worked a lot, made good investments." My cousin Hannah pulled me aside. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Your parents always told everyone you had problems with alcohol and gambling. That's why, supposedly, no one talks to you anymore." I almost choked on my champagne. "Seriously?" She nodded. "Yeah. They told that story to everyone who asked why you never came to anything." I laughed once, sharply. "Okay, here's what really happened." I told her everything. About the inheritance. About how they demanded I hand my $50,000 over to Madison's wedding budget, about how they threw me out when I refused, and how they went completely silent for 10 years. "Are you kidding me?" Hannah was stunned. "They cut you off over that?" "Exactly. And now they want back into my life just because they found out about my investments." "That's insane," Logan said, joining us. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that." "It's fine," I shrugged. "Honestly, I'm better off without them." And that was pure truth. The house was gorgeous. My career was taking off. Things with my boyfriend Nathan were great, and I was surrounded by people who genuinely cared. We were in the middle of grilling by the pool when someone started pounding on the front door so hard the walls rattled. I went to open it. On the doorstep stood my entire original fan club. My mom, my dad, Jake, and Madison. Their eyes were blazing with righteous indignation. "What is this circus?" Mom snapped, pushing past me into the foyer. "Why weren't we invited to the housewarming?" "Because you didn't even let me over the threshold on Mother's Day," I said calmly. "You slammed the door in my face, remember?" Dad was looking around, his eyes as wide as saucers. "Where did you get the money for a house like this?" "None of your business, Dad." Mom puffed herself up. "You lied to us all these years. Played the poor victim when you were rolling in money. Only rich people can afford a place like this." The whole party had frozen. My guests stood there watching the little show my relatives had brought to my living room. "The size of my bank account is not your concern," I said. "Please leave my house." But Mom wasn't done. She spotted Logan and Hannah and made a beeline for them. "You two need to talk some sense into her," she whined. "Emily ran away and cut us off for no reason. She's been acting like a selfish brat all this time." They looked completely lost, not sure where to put themselves. "I'll repeat this one last time," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Leave my house, or I'll call 911 and report you for trespassing." That finally got through. They stormed out, slamming the door like that would knock some sense into me. After they left, I turned to my guests with a wide smile. "Sorry for the little performance, everyone. Now, where were we? Let's keep the party going." Most of them laughed. The tension slowly drained from the room, but I could see some relatives still had questions frozen in their eyes. I didn't feel like unpacking my childhood right then, so I focused on being the gracious hostess. Later, after everyone left, I sat alone in my living room, replaying what had happened. For 10 years, my parents had been telling everyone that I'd drunk myself into the ground and blown all my money on gambling, painting me as a loser to justify cutting me off. But the second they saw my house and realized I had money, they suddenly wanted back in. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about family ties. It was about money. It had always been only about that. The next morning, my phone went crazy. Calls, voicemails, messages. I didn't pick up, but they left voice notes and texts. From my mother on WhatsApp. "We know you're a successful investor now. You're obligated to share with your family." From my big sister. "I've got a mortgage with Wells Fargo. I'm barely keeping up with the payments. You have to help." From my brother. "I really need a new car. You could lend me some money interest-free, just until I get back on my feet." I read through all that nonsense and just shook my head. 10 years of silence, and the second they learn I have money, they come crawling with their hands out. I blocked all their numbers without replying to a single message. A week later, Aunt Diane called. "Emily, your parents are terrorizing me with phone calls," she sighed. "They're trying to get to you through me." "What did you tell them?" "That they had their chance when you came over on Mother's Day with flowers. They blew it. And I also said I think they only care now because they heard about your money." "Bullseye," I said. "You're right. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Don't give in. You deserve better." I thought that with the block button, it would finally be over. Of course not. They weren't planning on giving up. A couple of weeks later, I was driving home from work. When I pulled up to my gate, I saw a familiar old Hyundai sitting outside. My parents' car. They were waiting. As soon as I drove into the driveway, they jumped out. "Emily, we need to talk," Dad started. "No, we don't," I said. "I blocked your numbers for a reason." "Come on, Em." Mom switched to her sweet, sugar-coated voice. "We're family. Let's handle this like adults. We stopped being family 10 years ago when you kicked me out for not giving up my inheritance." "That was a long time ago." Dad tried to smooth it over. "Everyone said things they didn't mean." "No," I corrected him. "You said exactly what you meant. And the only reason you're here now is because you found out about my money." Mom's fake smile vanished instantly. "So what?" she snapped. "You're supposed to help your family. That's how it works. Where was that family support when I was starting my career? When I was waiting tables in college? When I came to see you on Mother's Day?" They had no answer. "Get off my property," I said. "If you don't, I'll call the police and file a report for harassment and trespassing." They glared at me for a few more seconds, then got back in the car and drove off. I knew it wasn't the end. I was right. A week later, they ambushed me at work. I was walking from the office to my car in the parking garage of a business center in Midtown when the whole crew stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. "Emily, wait!" Jake called. I turned around. Mom, Dad, Jake, and Madison were marching toward me in a little formation. "You have got to be kidding me," I said. "This is stalking now." "We just want to talk," Madison said, putting on her best sad face. "Just 5 minutes." "You had 10 years to talk," I said. "You chose silence. Now it's my turn." "We made a mistake," Mom forced out. "Please forgive us." "For what exactly?" I asked. "For throwing me out? For 10 years of pretending I don't exist? For lying to everyone that I'm a drunk, degenerate gambler? Or just for missing the part where I became rich?" They all stared at the ground. "We heard about your investments," Dad finally said, switching tactics. "Good job. You've done well for yourself." "Without any help from you," I pointed out. "Look," Jake tried the emotional route. "Yeah, things got rough before, but we're still family. Families forgive each other. Families support each other in hard times. Families also don't make up disgusting stories about each other," I said. "You're strangers to me." "Please, Emily," Madison added, trying to muster a tear. "I really am having trouble with my mortgage. If you could help just a little—" And there it was, the core of it. "Let me be very clear," I said. "I don't owe you anything. Not a dollar. This is my money, earned with my brains and my work. You gave up the right to ask for my help the moment you told me I was no longer your daughter." I turned around, got in my car, and drove away, leaving them in the middle of the parking garage. After that little scene, I doubled down. I spoke to a lawyer about a restraining order, what my options were if they kept showing up. Just knowing I had that option made it easier to breathe. But oddly enough, after that confrontation, they finally backed off. Months passed. No calls, no surprise visits, no drama. For me, honestly, everything was going better than I could have planned. 2 years went by without my parents trying to break into my life again. They were the best 2 years of my life. My investment portfolio crossed the $5 million mark. I got another promotion at work. Nathan and I moved in together and started thinking about getting engaged. The house turned into a kind of center of gravity. Every month I hosted dinner parties, holiday gatherings, summer barbecues by the pool. Aunt Diane was a regular guest, along with Logan, Hannah, and other relatives who'd become my real family. At one of those parties, Logan pulled me aside. I need to tell you something," he said. "What's up?" "Your parents have been asking me about your parties." "What do you mean?" "Someone told them you host these big gatherings," he sighed. "They wanted to know if I could invite them sometime." I couldn't help laughing. "And what did you say?" "That I don't have the right to invite people into your house. If they want to come, they have to ask you directly." "And what did they do?" "Nothing. I think they know what your answer would be." "Exactly," I said. "After everything they've done, they should understand I'm never letting them back in so they can enjoy my house and my success." Later that night, as the party wound down, we ended up talking again about the old stories, about the supposed alcoholism and gambling. Logan finally asked the question he'd been dancing around. "Okay, really, what happened between you and your parents? Because that whole addiction thing obviously sounds like complete garbage." So I laid it out again, this time in front of a small circle of people who actually cared. I explained about the inheritance, about the demand to hand my $50,000 to Madison's wedding fund, about being tossed out of the house for refusing. "And now," I finished, They only want back in because they sniffed out my investment success. That's insane. Logan shook his head. I'm sorry you had to live through that. It's okay, I said. I really am better off without them. And I meant it. A few months later, Aunt Diane called again. This time her voice was worried. Emily, I need to tell you something, she said. Your dad had a heart attack. My heart clenched. How is he? Is he in the hospital? What do the doctors say? He's in the hospital, but his condition is stable. It wasn't the most serious kind, from what they told me. I see, I said, and went quiet. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, trying to sort through the mess in my head. On one hand, this was my father, the man who used to carry me on his shoulders, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, the man who also told me, at 22, that I was no longer his daughter because I wouldn't hand over my inheritance. Did I want to call? Go see him? Show up at the hospital? No, that was the honest answer. I hoped he would recover. I didn't wish him dead, but I didn't want to go back into that role of the convenient, financially useful daughter who swallows everything just to keep the peace. They made their choice 10 years ago. I made mine. They chose a wedding budget over their relationship with me. They chose lies and gossip, stories about alcohol and gambling over telling the truth. They chose to slam the door in my face on Mother's Day rather than let me cross the threshold. And I chose myself. I chose a life where I'm not an ATM, where family means the people who actually show up for you, not just the ones who share your last name and your blood type. Aunt Diane, my cousins, my friends, the man I love, these people are my family now. They support me without demanding payment. They show up to my barbecues to be with me, not with my pool. Sometimes people tell me, but they're still your parents. You have to help them. No, I don't. I sent them no money. I didn't run to the hospital. I didn't suddenly forget how they treated me when they thought I was useless and broke. Instead, I went out to the backyard, sat on my own deck, and watched the sun set over my pool, the one I paid for with my own brain, my own work, my own risks. Do I feel guilty? Honestly, no, not anymore. They taught me, in the most brutal way possible, that blood ties are not a lifetime subscription to my resources, my time, or my heart. I brought chrysanthemums on Mother's Day and got a door in my face. 4 months later, I bought a $1.2 million house and filled it with people who actually see me. They once said there was no place for me in their home. Now there's no place for them in my life. But you tell me, did I go too far? Or did I finally go just far enough?